From WFRV Local 5, your local election headquarters. This is Newsmaker Sunday.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us for Newsmaker Sunday. I'm Tom Zalaski. Well, the general election is just around the corner, and it seems all eyes are on Wisconsin as a swing state in the presidential race. But we've got some state races here that are also very important, and one of those races we're keeping an eye on is the Assembly District 54 contest. Former Oshkosh Mayor Lori Palmieri wrapping up her first term as re-election, and also she is running against Republican challenger Tim Patterson. And Tim Patterson, the challenger, joining us here this morning. Tim, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me here, Tom. This is quite an honor.
Tim, what was the trigger for you to decide to run for state office? Was there an event that happened, something you saw, something you weren't satisfied with? Why are you running?
Well, I had just recently retired from 33 years in the military. And I was content to just sit in Fort living room and just kind of enjoy my time, so to speak. And, you know, all of a sudden you get the notion that there's a lot of things that I feel aren't going in the right direction in the country right now. And it's not my inclination to just kind of sit on the sidelines and just let things unfold. You know, I mean, I felt as long as I still feel like I have the capacity to serve, it was important that I run for office and weigh in on what I think are the issues. And the other thing that happened when they did the zoning, the redistricting, as it turns out, it left my district unopposed. And I just feel that Winnebago County, that Oshkosh has got too much going for it to just let it go away for free. And that's exactly why I'm running for office, is to provide an alternative and hopefully provide a situation where I feel like what I think is important is being represented.
And for people outside of Winnebago County, outside of Oshkosh, where you are known, to the people who don't know Tim Patterson, who is Tim Patterson? What's your background? Where are you from? Give us the Tim Patterson resume, if you will.
Sure. Well, as it turns out, I'm a graduate from West De Pere High School. And after high school at West De Pere, I played football, ran track, was involved. You know, I was pretty involved with the high school. And then I went off to the University of Madison, mostly to just try to chase a dream. And I walked on with the Badger football team and actually made the team back in 1984. So that was quite an honor to be able to play for the University of Wisconsin. My career wasn't exactly too illustrious, however. I think it was very much like Rudy. You know, I was a scout team running back, but what an amazing experience that was to be a part of that team towards the end of the Dave McClain era, and so many amazing football players came out of that. Like, you know, I was Al Toon's senior year, for example, or Jeff Dellenbach's senior year. You know, Kenny Stills was a Packer as well. And so just an amazing opportunity to rub shoulders with those guys. But unfortunately, I didn't make the team even my sophomore year. And I kind of felt like I got lost in the shuffle at Madison, and eventually I dropped out of school. And through the advice of a lot of good friends of mine, they convinced me that I should give a shot, I should enlist and join the military. So I joined an aviation unit down in Madison, and I started off as what they call a Kiowa helicopter mechanic. And I really lucked out when I joined the service. I found everything that I felt I was missing, like the camaraderie, the team spirit that I was missing in sports when I had to let sports go. I found in the service, and that was just a wonderful feeling. And so I felt really driven to just continue to excel there. And eventually what happened is they saw that I had lots of potential, and we had determined that we were short helicopter pilots. And so I was encouraged to go give it a shot, to go through the additional testing and the physical requirements, and eventually I got a shot to go to flight school, which I got to do back in 1996. And that was amazing. You know, again, a chance to rub shoulders with some of the finest Americans I've ever met. You know, they're just really fine, sharp young people. Just to be associated with them was incredible. And you know, I came back from flight school. We had a variety of assignments, and then of course, eventually down the road, you know, 9/11 happened, and so I ended up having opportunities to serve the country as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot over in Kuwait and Iraq. And I went in '02, and we thought the war was going to start in '02, but it didn't. For those that may remember, Secretary of Defense Rumsfeld rejected the war plans in '02, so put everybody back to the drawing board. So then we were sent home, but then we returned back again in '03. So I was there for the actual initial invasion of Kuwait going into Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. And somewhere in the middle of all that, back in 1994, right before I got sent to the chemical warfare school, I found a very, very charitable woman who was crazy enough to marry me. And
Good for you.
And that was wonderful. And just this past July, we just passed our 30-year anniversary. And you know, I feel that that's quite an achievement too, because you know, being married has its challenges, but being a military spouse is difficult.
Sure. 30 years married, 33 years in the Guard and Reserve.
Correct.
So in Guard and Reserve, what would you say your area of expertise was in the end?
Well, it started off as aviation in general, like being a combat pilot, and of course that's a skill set. But as you move on, I transitioned to a point where I was no longer flying an aircraft. I was actually flying a desk. And I know that might be hard to believe, but the desk is not as fun as the aircraft. Sure. You know? But of course, that meant that I was getting promoted. I was getting pushed up into staff roles, okay? And battalion staff, you know, for those of you that may know the military echelons, but, you know, battalion staff, brigade staff, and division staff. And I think that's something I'd like to share with the viewers today, is that I know that there's a lot of people that might question, well, what does the military do for you? Why do you think you should go down to the assembly? What did the military give you? And it's a matter of understanding the staff role. And so what happens is you don't get to pick who's on staff with you. So over my years as a staff officer, I've worked with people from coast to coast. I've worked with people with different religions, different races, and different mentalities. And what I mean by that is, for example, your average person in Mississippi doesn't necessarily always see things the same way as we see them in Wisconsin,
Sure.
nor in California or in Massachusetts. And I was actually thinking about this on the drive up here. I think Wyoming is the only state that I haven't actually worked with somebody at some point or another. Why Wyoming, I don't know. But you see, what you do as a staff officer, what you do is you're assigned a question, a problem, a mission, you know. And what you do is you come to the table, you check your attitudes at the door, and you come to the table and you have to work together to create a solution, to create a viable solution. And hand in hand with that, it's also really important that you make everybody on that team has to feel like they're a respected part of the team. What it does is it creates trust, it creates respect, and therefore that person that's sitting next to you is willing to contribute. And I found that when you've got people that come from different backgrounds and that maybe have a little bit different ideas, when you all come together at the table, that's when you form your strongest solutions, okay? And what we have to do in the service is we have to put that solution together and then brief it to a commander, which would be like a colonel or a general in some cases. And I find that that's very similar to what the job of working at the assembly would be, is that you would be working in a committee, that you would be working out to try to create solutions, which in this case we would call legislation. And then you would actually have to bring it to the two gatekeepers, which would be the Speaker of the House, and then ultimately see if the governor will sign them.
I want to get into more of that, how you will transfer that into into the State House after our short break. More with Tim Patterson right after this. Please stay with us. Back now with Tim Patterson, who is running against State Assembly Representative Lori Palmieri. A little bit more on your experience in the military and how you believe it translates into if you would win a seat in the State House. What is it that you did in the military, learned in the military, that you will transfer to a State House seat? Well,
in addition to the staff roles that we talked about, I also have some experience in dealing with like FEMA type situations. Whether it was FEMA exercises or whether it was what they call WEM, Wisconsin Emergency Management. And it's a matter, and again, that's a little bit of a different skill set too, but what you're looking at is you're looking for rapid solutions to serious situations that affect people, affect people's lives, or affect their situations in general. And so between that combination of learning how to come up with immediate responses, but also the opportunity to come up with well thought out solutions, you know, whether it's one or the other. The military adopts this thing called the military decision-making process, and so that's a thought process that's adopted, is trained by everybody. We would know it on the civilian world is very similar to what they call the Six Sigma process, if you're familiar with that management control concept. And what happens is, again, once you get through that, like I described, you get your team, you get your committee together, you build a good working relationship with everybody, and what it does is it develops courses of action, or in which case it would be legislative ideas. It develops ideas. But what I like about the process is that it forces you to think about it a little bit deeper. You tend to come up with more important, more all-encompassing solutions when you actually apply that type of thought to it. What I like to call 360-degree solutions to issues. I feel one of the issues that we have in government right now is that sometimes we have these quick fixes, Hey, we've got a problem. Oh, I think the problem's limited to this little thing, and we'll do a quick fix and throw a couple $1 million at it and hope the issue goes away. And I don't want to be a part of anything like that. I want to make sure that we have well thought out, collaborative solutions that actually deal with the issues, so that you're actually having a long-standing solution to whatever the problem it is that you're trying to solve.
Let me touch upon, you've got this military career, but also you've got a varied career in other areas. Tell me about your employment with Alta Resources, and Zeroni's Pizza.
Absolutely.
How does that work in?
That's a good question. So for 20 years, I worked for Alta Resources, and they're an outsourcing company out of Neenah, Wisconsin. And they have a variety of different customers that they actually perform outsourcing duties for. And I was very fortunate in that I had the opportunity to work on their Disney program for the longest time. And I started that job right as we were transitioning from VHS to DVD. And there were a lot of player issues. And so I was part of a customer relations team that would help people work through all the different switchology to get the DVD players to work. And then eventually the same thing with the Blu-rays, the transition from DVD to Blu-ray, which was a lot simpler than the VHS one. But then in addition to that, I also transferred into more of a sales role with them. And this was for what they called the Disney or the Buena Vista home entertainment, which was, the videos, the DVD and Blu-ray. And I was very fortunate in that I was able to do that for about 20 years. And the one thing that I'm particularly grateful for is how Alta was very encouraging of my having to come and go for the military. And not so much that they kept a job open for me, but they kept my job open for me. So in the 20 years that I worked for Alta, I was away from them for almost 7 years between all the different things that went on. And so I will always be very appreciative to that relationship with Alta Resources.
And how did you get into the pizza business?
That's a good question. So what happened is, in the last 4 years of my career, I spent about 3.5 of it at Fort McCoy, with periodically coming home. And during that time, a friend of ours decided that he was going to start running for office, and that would be John Damel, who's running for the county executive.
You're executive, yes.
And my wife met them and fell in love with them and decided to help John campaign. And then again, very happy that he won won the office, right? But then when he did that, he needed help at the pizzeria, and my wife was like, "You need to give them a hand." And I was like, "I don't know anything about being working a pizzeria or managing a pizzeria by any means." But anyway, eventually I started working for him, and then I started managing the place, and mostly, in a way, a favor to a friend type situation. And it was interesting, but a very challenging and demanding job, a lot more challenging and demanding than I thought it would ever be.
Quite the varied career. We have much more to come with Tim Patterson after this, so please stay right there. We're back now with State Assembly District candidate Tim Patterson. For Winnebago County, you represent District 11. How long have you been on the board?
Since April.
Okay. Committees, are you on any committees?
I am.
Such as?
Well, I have been on, prior to my winning the seat for District 11, I was appointed by Mr. Damel to the Veterans Service Commission. And I've been doing that for about 2 years now. And then once I won the election for the county board, I was assigned to the Aviation Commission, or the Aviation Committee, and the Solid Waste Management Committee.
Okay. You have seen what's going on in Madison, the infighting, the legislature, Democrats, Republicans versus the governor. gavel in, gavel out. What do you see as a solution to finally getting those two sides together?
Well, first of all, the one thing I would like to say is, I mean, remember at this point in time, I'm still just a citizen, right? I just really feel that the people of Wisconsin deserve better than what they're getting out of Madison right now. It's very disappointing, you know. The gridlock is creating so many delays in meaningful legislation going out there and actually helping the people. And I am certainly very upset about that too. You know, I know it was brought up previously talking about the gatekeeper at the Speaker of the House, but also, you know, I don't think that there's a lot of attention that's also given to the governor. You know, he's the one that's got the powerful pen that vetoes a lot of the legislation too. But we got to get past this reluctance to let the other side look good periodically. You know, I think that's what from what I've heard, that's where part of the concern is. And I think deep down inside, I might be wrong, but I feel that there are too many people down in Madison that are too closely linked, they identify too closely with their party. You know, it's Democrats versus Republicans, and I'm not planning to be that guy. Me personally, there are other things that identify who I am. You know, I'm an American. I'm a man of faith. I'm a two-tour combat veteran, okay? I'm a husband. I'm a dad. Previously, I've been a youth sports coach. And in the military, one of my roles was as an instructor, you know? And I would say that every one of those things means as much, if not more, than simply being a Republican. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's the kind of thing that, if nothing else, to start having those conversations with people and start to remind people that you're not here to just be one or the other. You're here to serve your district, to serve the people that were elected to represent, and to try to get people to start remembering that that's why you're there in the first place. But I guarantee you that's why I will be there in the first place.
And we are back to wrap up with Tim Patterson right after this, so please stay right there. And back now with Tim Patterson, running for State Assembly, District 54. A few items on your website that you hold near and dear, addressing rising costs. Absolutely. We're all concerned. Mm-hmm. How do you do that on the state level?
Well, that's a very difficult, very challenging answer. But one of the things that has to happen, we can't just continue to buy into some of these national policies that are causing interest rates and inflation to go up. But the only thing that we can really do is make sure that we are keeping our taxation at the state level and below in check. One of the things that's unfortunate about the inflation and the interest rates that I'm becoming aware of as well, that not only in Oshkosh, but there's a lot of communities in the Fox Valley that have recently approved like capital improvements for schools and everything too, which is also causing a rise in property taxes, right. You know? And that's something that not a lot of people are talking about, but we need to understand and appreciate that there are other items that are creating our costs to increase. And it's very important that we just actually have to really check our spending. You know, we really have to tighten up our budgets. We really have to control what we're spending on, because it's really going to be hurting us, and I think it's going to continue to hurt us in the next few years unless we get a handle on it.
You're concerned about keeping Oshkosh safe, and I would take it you mean the whole state as well.
Absolutely.
In what ways? What caused you to put that top of agenda?
Well, what I'm seeing is I'm looking at a community where for the longest time, you know, minimal issues. But just this year alone, for Oshkosh anyway, we've had 3 homicides, or I'll call them murders. Yeah. All 3 of them drug related, you know, and that's alien to us. That's not Oshkosh, you know. And so we really have to be mindful of some of the effects of the drugs that's crossing the border and how they're showing up or manifesting themselves in our local community, you know. We really have to get a handle on this and make sure that we are keeping that element away from our families.
Sure. Tim, I've got about a minute for you to make your pitch to the voters as to why District 54 should have Tim Patterson as their representative.
Absolutely. Well, folks, just to make it clear, my viewpoint on service is such that when I went overseas to protect us on the war on terrorism, that was to protect our entire country, our entire state, not just people that are like me, not just people that believe the same thing as I do. Serving the assembly, in my mind, would be the same thing. I'm doing that to serve everybody that's in that district. I feel that no matter who you are, your voice should be heard. And I don't know if there's anybody that I would trust more to stand up for your rights than a proven, tried combat veteran. Mm-hmm. So please vote for me on November 5th, Tim Patterson.
And if and when you get to Madison, what's top of agenda? What's one or two items that you want to hit right away?
Well, housing is really important.
Yep.
And hand in hand with that is we need to try to remove as many barriers that we have to new construction that we have right now. There's a lot of roadblocks into construction right now, Tom, and,
Sure.
and it's frustrating. It's what we need, but we have so many things preventing us from doing it.
Right. Tim Patterson, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Much appreciated. And if you have a newsmaker in your town who you think we should have on this program, let us know about it. Send us an email to tips@wearegreenbay.com, or you can message us on Facebook. And be sure to join us once again Sunday morning, 7 o'clock. Until then, have a great day.